Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Good morning, and thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company. It is 8:06 on a busy Tuesday morning. Be careful out there. It's kind of foggy. We are chugging along here. I'm Julie Gunlock alongside Hans von Spakovsky. He manages the Election Law Reform Initiative at the Heritage Foundation, and he is author of Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department. Don't forget, it's Christmas. That would make a great book to buy.
Especially for Pam Bondi. So she reads my book. She knows what to do, and she gets the DOJ.
It's a blueprint. Yes. That's right. Joining us now is Susan Ferrechio at the Washington Times. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning.
So you're going to give us the latest update on Trump's cabinet picks. Things seem to have turned around a little bit, especially for Pete Hegseth. Joni Ernst is now supporting his nomination. That's quite a turnaround, Susan, because she was pretty passionately against him. Am I saying that? I mean, don't you agree with that? Or I mean, maybe she was on the fence, but I feel like her turnaround on Pete Hegseth is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I would definitely call it a momentum shift for Pete Hegseth. I think last week the momentum was not going in his favor. There were signs that he was not going to get even the bare majority that he would need for confirmation. Don't forget, Republicans will have control of the Senate, so it's all on them basically. If you assume that Democrats wouldn't vote for Pete Hegseth, so the pressure was on Democrats, and it has been for weeks now to get behind Trump's cabinet picks. The general understanding is the president should be able to pick his cabinet. Over the years, of course, we've seen more partisan opposition to cabinet picks from presidents. That's happened increasingly over the past decade. And now you're at the point where there are certain cabinet picks that aren't going to get any Democratic support. So in this case, with Pete Hegseth, all the pressure is on Republicans at this point to support him. Yeah, Joni Ernst was one of the people who wasn't really behind him. She didn't say she was going to vote against him, but she had questions. There were other senators who said they also had questions, but were sort of on the fence. This did not go over well with MAGA world, with Trump's top allies who were saying to senators on the Hill, you better get behind these nominees because this is what people voted for. And if you don't get behind them, we're going to primary those of you who are up again in 2026. I think that is when you started to see momentum shift. And of course, what we saw last night was Joni Ernst. She met with Pete Hegseth a second time, and she announced that not necessarily a vote in his favor for sure, but that she was going to support him through the process and that they had a positive meeting. So things are now shifting more in his favor. He still has to go through a potentially very contentious Senate confirmation hearing. There could be real pitfalls for him there. He's going to have to shine in that hearing and be able to fend off these challenges and questions about some of these accusations and stories that have circulated about him. Yeah. That's going to be a really big deal. But at this moment, Julie, yes, it's shifted more in Hegseth's favor.
I think people, I agree. I think people felt like, okay, Trump should be able to make his choices. He should have the people around him that he wants, all of that. But I also think some of the passionate response to Pete Hegseth and sort of in defense of him has been that many people saw it as the Kavanaughing of Pete Hegseth, that many of these allegations were anonymous and, no sources on this stuff. And I think people are tired of that this is not the reason to sink a nominee based on, again, anonymous sources that are being promoted by media sources that obviously hate Trump. So, I think that probably had a little bit to do also with the pushback on Joni Ernst. Do you think Ernst will pay a price for this? Do you think there'll be a primary challenge? Because you mentioned the MAGA world. People are very angry at her.
Well, there's been threats already, definitive threats, and I've written stories about this too. And there are donors who are willing to fund these primaries. I think Elon Musk has made a threat about it, and don't forget, what did he raise? $25 million for President Trump. there's nothing an incumbent senator up for re-election hates more than a well-funded primary challenger. I mean, that just really throws a monkey wrench into your re-election plans. If you've got a well-funded primary challenger, nobody wants that. That's not to say these senators sit around and do everything based on what could happen to them politically. They also have their own, they want to do the right thing too. So there's that. I think the other problem with Hegseth is the fear amongst some people that he will just really disrupt the Pentagon, disrupt the military in ways that some people are not comfortable with. So there's that whole side of it as well. You could say, oh, well, look at all these anonymous claims and sources. But what about what he wants to do with the military? He's there, Trump picked him for a reason. And that is to be a disruptor and sort of rip out all the DEI roots that have taken hold in the military and make other big changes that people may not be comfortable with. And so that's part of the opposition as well, that you're not hearing them say it out loud. But I think let's pay attention to these confirmation hearings. It's going to be really interesting. Yesterday, Tulsi Gabbard was on the Hill. Now, she is the Director of National Intelligence nominee for President Trump. She's another nominee who I know from talking to senators that they have concerns and questions about her level of experience, even though she's a lieutenant colonel in the military, but they also are worried about her views on Ukraine, Russia, Syria, Iran. They want to talk to her more. She supports Trump, though, fully on all these issues. In fact, yesterday she came out and said that she backed the president following the developments in Syria and Bashar Assad's abandoning of the country. She got out and made a statement that she backs Trump, who we know tweeted over the weekend, we need to stay out of this. We need to stay out of Syria and not get entangled in another big mess in the Middle East. So she backs Trump, another disruptor, skeptical of the intelligence community. These are the kind of people Trump promised voters he would put in his cabinet. So there's the pressure on these Senate Republicans, and I've talked to them about this. They're saying, look, they need to, the will of the people here is that Trump was elected and that they liked who he was going to pick. Heck, he campaigned with them. Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., they were out on the campaign trail with him, and now they are cabinet picks with RFK Jr. coming up for Health and Human Services Secretary. That'll be another wild confirmation hearing. But these senators are having to come to grips with this right now, and it's really rather interesting to watch the dynamic on Capitol Hill as they realize this. They feel the pressure, and they love their autonomy and advise and consent role, but they see the wave, the pressure from MAGA world and his supporters, President Trump's supporters, and it's having a real impact on this confirmation process.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about that because the United States Senate is like the most exclusive country club in the country. But look, you mentioned hearings. Let me ask you this. In 2017, the Senate acted very quickly. In the month of January, they held hearings on more than a dozen of Trump's nominees before he even became president. And then they quickly held votes right after that. So he quickly got a cabinet assembled. Have we heard anything from the new leader of the Republicans, John Thune, about plans to do the same thing here?
Yes, they're going to move quickly with hearings. And I know from talking to individual upcoming committee chairmen that they're planning to hold hearings as soon as the Congress begins on January 3rd. They're going to start holding these hearings. They're going to move it along very quickly. And of course, as you know, Hans, on January 20th, the second president is sworn in. The Senate gavels into session, and they get right to work. I expect them to, if I were to take a wild guess, that Marco Rubio will be confirmed on January 20th. They want to get the big ones out of the gate. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. They usually move very quickly on that nominee, the major noms. Right on the 20th, they have them ready to go, and then as soon as the president is in office, don't forget he hasn't officially sent his nominees to the Senate yet because he's not president. But once he is president, they get those nominations, and then they can just go with it and get his cabinet installed quickly. His problem back in 2017, President Trump, was there was a lag time in getting his cabinet in office. They blamed at the time Democrats' stalling tactics. FBI background checks stalled problems that they think that the deep state was implementing to trip him up and keep him from getting his cabinet in place. They don't want a repeat of that. They want to get the majors in there really quickly, and the deputies. They want to get this done and get rolling because we all know that the mandate and the momentum for Trump to get in and make real changes in the country runs out rather quickly. He'll get into office, and they have about a year or two before the midterm elections start to interfere with things on Capitol Hill and gum up the works and make it hard to get things done. So he's got this wind at his back now, and they've got to move real fast. They want to do some of these big things like cutting the size of government, and of course this major plan for tax cuts and some other big changes on immigration and others. So speed is the word, Hans. So you're right about that.
Susan, your updates are always great. Thank you so much for coming on this morning.
Thanks, you guys.
Let's get straight to Jamie.